shameless grifters. This is a new low. Harry and Meghan have been blasted for their wild hypocrisy in doing speeches around the world about the dangers of the internet and social media, particularly regarding children, while splashing photographs of Archie and Lily all over social media.
This is totally bonkers. Meghan Markle has decided to use the 5th birthday of her own daughter to lash out while claiming to be the hero for protecting children from social media. We see you, Meghan, and your angry statement ain't going to shut us up.
18 days. Just 18 days separated the speech from the photograph, and that gap is everything. 18 days ago, she walked into the World Health Organization in Geneva and stood before a room packed with global officials. Her message? That children are being hunted by algorithms shaped by systems built to exploit their attention. It was the right message, in the right room, the kind of warning you would send to your own kid without hesitation. Then Thursday arrived, her youngest child's 5th birthday. She opened her Instagram, the one sitting at 5 million followers with barely 100 posts, and dropped 2 brand new photos of her daughter, our dream girl. She wrote, with a white heart, comments switched off, no one allowed to respond. And the internet?
Children are no longer just participants in digital spaces. They are too often the product. They didn't know that the platforms valued profit over people. We would never accept a food system that knowingly exposed children to harm.
But Meghan Markle, are you seriously saying, despite that rhetoric, that your 5-year-old daughter is giving you permission to share her image for money? I think there's nothing wrong with parents sharing their children online. But remember, Prince Harry has called it evil. He has attacked parents who are doing exactly what you were doing.
It did not just lose it, it erupted. The American press melted, naturally. People magazine wrapped it in a warm bow, the joint Disneyland birthday trip, the rare peek inside a private family moment. And honestly, a big chunk of her audience read it exactly that way. Just a mum sharing her girl. But warmth was never the story. The timing was. Here is where a simple birthday post became something much bigger. She did not take the heat quietly. She did not disappear and let the noise fade. Her camp came out swinging on record the day before the photo even dropped. And the royal commentators who sat through that Geneva speech, they were not kind. Tom Sykes, who was physically in Switzerland for it, called the picture staggeringly tone-deaf. And this is the same woman who, just a month earlier, posted a full tribute for her son Archie's 7th birthday, no holding back whatsoever. So the so-called policy? It bends exactly when she wants it to bend. She warned the world that algorithms feast on children. Then, 18 days later, she pulled up a chair and sat one down at the table.
She also said she wasn't going to serve her children to the media on a silver platter, specifically Archie. But now we have her serving her children on a silver platter to the same social media companies that she goes around campaigning against for, I guess, that dopamine hit. I am also imagine she is paid per post as an Instagram influencer. I do believe she's probably in that program, so that would be an incentive for her.
That is what this is really about. Not whether a mother can share a photo of her own child, she absolutely can. This is about the 18 days. It is about the response nobody saw coming. And it is about the one detail that has half of Fleet Street calling this the clearest birthday photo she has ever posted, while the other half insists the exact opposite. Both cannot be right. By the end of this, you will know which side actually read the room. Most people caught in a contradiction this size go quiet, post something soft, wait it out. She did the complete opposite. She doubled down. A spokesperson for the Duchess went directly to Newsweek the day before the birthday and drew a hard line. The statement said, there is a distinction between sharing moments from her life and exposing her children to public scrutiny. By keeping their faces out of frame, the argument goes, she is doing exactly what she preached in Geneva, protecting them. But here is the part that should make you pause: that defense was written, approved, and handed to a journalist the day before the photograph landed, as if they already knew precisely how it would read.
And the problem that I have, particularly with this now,
or not my personal problem, but why I just think it's incredibly unwise of this couple to do this, is that increasingly at the center of this commercial operation is Lilibet. She is increasingly the cheese, the bait, the whatever you want to call it, to draw people into these photographs.
Read that twice, because it is a genuinely clever move, and it deserves to be taken seriously before it gets taken apart. The claim is not, "I changed my mind." The claim is that the photograph and the Geneva sermon are actually the same thing. She is not backing away from Geneva. She is folding the birthday post directly into it, rebranding both as the same act of protection. And that is exactly the move that has royal watchers glued to their screens. This was not a slip. It was a calculated decision. She knew the criticism was loaded and aimed straight at her. She had her response drafted and ready before the camera even clicked, and she hit publish anyway. Newsweek itself framed it as a woman choosing to double down rather than back down. Richard Fitzwilliams on GB News put his finger on the thing that bothers people most. "The Sussexes," he said, "are tireless in self-promotion, and the habit of always photographing the children from behind is, in his own word, very curious." And that word is carrying a lot of weight, because a woman who genuinely wanted her children invisible has the simplest tool available. She just does not post them. What she does instead is post them carefully, on a schedule, on her own platform, to 5 million strangers.
I think, really got the mood of this one right by suggesting that Meghan Markle is the antithesis of the icon that she thinks she is. She is the grandiose narcissist who displays of self-worship are now and always have been farcical, and she zoomed in on the faces of those watching.
That is not protection, that is art direction. She was not the only voice either. Brand and culture commentator Nick Eade told Newsweek the whole sequence simply felt hypocritical and pointed directly at the timing. Then, over at The Independent, columnist Claire Cohen published a piece about social media mothers that landed squarely on the Duchess, arguing that posting your child repeatedly, even with the face kept out of frame, betrays a child's privacy rather than protects it. That is not a gossip account. That is a national broadsheet putting the same charge into print on the very same day. So that is a royal commentator, a brand expert, and a broadsheet columnist, 3 separate platforms all reaching for the same word. The camp's defense is that the picture is the point. The critic's reply is sharper. You cannot warn the world about exposure on a Saturday and trade on your child's image by the following Thursday. And so far, the camp has not budged a single inch. But here is where it stops being about the commentators and becomes about her, because the most powerful case against this post was not made by Tom Sykes or GB News or anyone sitting in a studio.
The Duchess has always been clear that there is a distinction between sharing moments from her life and exposing her children to public scrutiny. What is the difference? If you put your kids on social media, you are exposing them to public scrutiny. They go on to say, by obscuring their faces, she's demonstrating the very principle that she advocates, giving children privacy, agency, and protection in an increasingly digital world. Well, she's not giving them agency because they are children and they haven't chosen to be on the internet. Agency is when you choose to do something. She's not giving them privacy because she's putting them on the internet. If you just have a child and it's the back of their head, or you put a heart on their face, that does not protect them. In fact, it creates more curiosity among potential bad actors. It's the worst thing you can do.
It was made by Meghan herself, in Geneva, 3 weeks ago, on camera, standing beside the Director General of the World Health Organization. This was not a soft photo opportunity. It was World Health Assembly Week, global health ministers in town, a memorial of 50 illuminated light boxes, each one representing a child harmed by life online. First shown in New York the year before, now standing on one of the most serious public health stages in the world, and she was the face of it. She did not hold back. She spoke about relentless algorithms. She warned about exploitative engagement. She raised the alarm about endless exposure to content that children never went looking for. And she declared that children must be safe by design, not by chance. Strong words. The right words, frankly. And that is exactly what makes what came next so maddening, because the cause is real and she is correct about it, which only makes the contradiction harder to ignore. A warning only carries weight when the person delivering it actually lives by it.
When she did her speech in Geneva, was that young kids are being exposed via social media to dangerous algorithms and content, and it's very different from her own positive content. And they argued many mothers share content of their children and are proud and positive. Meghan does it tastefully and without showing their faces, just as many other well-known people do. The way she actually teases the children's faces could increase security concerns.
Meghan does not show the children's faces, and so that therefore this is somehow their privacy is being protected. It's completely absurd, frankly, because what Meghan is doing by not showing the faces, or by revealing them very slowly, by revealing side portions or half portions, is feeding what marketers call a curiosity gap.
The moment they do not, every sentence spoken in that hall gets quietly hollowed out, and the parents who genuinely needed to hear it start tuning out the messenger entirely. She walked off that stage, and within 18 days, she handed that same relentless algorithm a fresh image of her 5-year-old to consume. The same algorithm she had just condemned. The same exposure she had just labeled a danger, only this time with a prettier frame and a caption written in her own hand. And before anyone jumps in with, she is allowed to share her own children, stop right there. She absolutely is. Nobody is arguing otherwise. That was never the question. The question is the 18 days. You cannot stand at a World Health Summit and warn the entire planet that children are drowning in digital attention, then a fortnight later, hold your own child up to the light and invite the internet to come and stare. Running a privacy campaign from a verified Instagram account with 5 million followers is like writing a diet plan on the back of a takeaway menu. The message is not wrong. It is that the messenger keeps ordering the chips.
Nick Eade is a cultural icon, a man who is friends with royalty, politicians, designers, photographers. He's incredibly well connected. He's best friends with Elton John and Madonna. And Nick Eade is absolutely furious about this. And he told Newsweek the day before Meghan went and did her speech in Switzerland about the dangers of the internet, particularly towards children, she posted a photograph of herself and her daughter Lily, and then literally had the Armani label out of the Armani suit that she was wearing to this important speech. He goes on to say she can commercialize her social media, obviously as an adult, no problem, but it felt very hypocritical. We know she's a hypocrite, so there's no two ways about it.
But here is the part that should bother you most, not the photograph itself. The certainty behind it. She did not stumble into this. She lectured the world, got challenged, had her defense already written and waiting, and hit publish with her eyes wide open. This was the most calculated move she has made all year, and she is asking you to read it as the most natural thing in the world. Those two things cannot both be true, and somewhere in Montecito, she knows it. Now, here is the detail this entire row actually turns on, the part most people have completely skated past, and the part that quietly breaks the whole defense apart. The official line, the spokesperson's entire argument, rests on one single word: obscured. The faces, we are told, are kept back. And that keeping back is supposed to be the principle in action. Plenty of outlets ran with it in exactly those terms. Newsweek, the New Zealand Herald, and others all described the image as consistent with the couple's long-standing approach of not showing the children clearly. Except that is not how everyone read it. The Daily Mail, looking at the exact same photograph, pushed back hard, calling it the clearest image she has ever posted of her daughter.
And I have to be honest, the mainstream media was totally buying this. The Sun, Meghan shares adorable picture with smiling Prince Harry and Lilibet to celebrate daughter's 5th birthday. But there was nothing adorable about this. What it is a hypocritical money play. At 5 years old, Meghan Markle has realised that that poor young girl is the best way for her to make money. So that's why she's defending the fact that she's going to keep going online with these weird sort of half shots, the hearts. But look at these pictures. Come on, when you put the two of them together and everything else that we have seen with this poor young girl, of course we know who she is. This is weird, it is creepy, it is hypocritical, and that's why Meghan has decided to lash out.
And once you place those two descriptions side by side, the problem becomes impossible to ignore. The entire privacy argument depends on the face being kept back. A major national newspaper looked at the same picture and said the complete opposite. Both cannot be right, and the spokesperson is betting that you will not notice two camps describing one photograph in completely different terms. So, which is it? Because the spokesperson cannot have it both ways. Either this is the careful, privacy-protecting image the statement describes, or it is the boldest picture she has ever put out. 18 days after a speech about overexposure, and it cannot be both the most cautious picture and the boldest picture at the same time. That is the contradiction the statement quietly hopes you will not notice. Here is the pattern that should make you sit up straight. The couple have leaned on the same privacy line for years. It is, they insist, the whole reason the children are photographed the way they are. But run an honest eye over how strictly that rule has actually held milestone after milestone, and it has not tightened the way you would expect from a family becoming more protective as their children grow older.
This is dumb. And as the head of WHO, he should not be wasting time with her. In fact, because her credibility is so damaged, she damages his credibility, which is already in the toilet. This is done, and it shows, and I think proves, as I said, that the WHO is not a serious organization. Meghan Markle, a shallow, vain, and vapid advocate who never lives by what she preaches to others, especially in regard to social media.
Why is Meghan Markle speaking at an event for bullying? She's the bully. She's literally the biggest bully. You can even see her face sometimes when she has to interact with someone who's poor. She's like disgusted. She looks disgusted having to hug people who don't live in massive mansions in Montecito like her. She seems absolutely disgusted.
It has gone the exact opposite direction. The standard described in their statements and the standard visible in the actual posts have drifted further apart and always in one direction only. Nobody pushed that on them. She chose the platform, picked the moment, and decided exactly how much to put out every single time. And it is the family themselves, not the press, who keep landing on the answer of more. The experts do not all stand in the same corner either, and an honest look says so plainly. One child psychologist told Newsweek that keeping a face out of frame genuinely does offer more protection than posting a fully identifiable image. That is true. But the same expert added the part the spokesperson very carefully left out. It does not remove the risk. It only lowers it. And a second specialist told the same outlet that for children of public figures, the danger can actually run higher, not lower, regardless of how carefully the pictures are framed. Protection by half measure is still half a risk. And this is a risk this particular mother told the World Health Organization she understood better than almost anyone. There is one more thread to pull, and it is the one Tom Sykes pulled hardest. Her Instagram, he said, is a public-facing shop window. Critics read a commercial angle into the styling of these posts, and that remains their read.
You know what she's doing there, right? She's talking about her own trolling, because that's what this is all about, mark my words. She wants a censored internet. Dr. Tedros was despicable when it came to censorship of big tech platforms during COVID, trying to shut down people like me, telling the truth. And that is what Meghan wants. It is actually gross that she is using grieving parents in this way. But I can't take a word that she says seriously about children and online permissions, given the way that she merged her own daughter 24 hours before this speech. Profit over people. You're putting profit over the privacy of your own daughter. So just zip it. Zip it with your faux politician act. I guess Lily didn't seek out her starring role in selling Meghan's outfit either, did she?
But the timeline does her no favors whatsoever. The night before Geneva, she posted herself getting ready, captioned, "Mama's little helper," and there in the mirror, clearly in shot, was the label of the designer suit she would wear to the summit the very next day. A speech about protecting children trailed the night before by a wardrobe reveal. The audacity of placing a child safety summit and a designer teaser into the exact same news cycle is the part her critics simply cannot move past. Call it a coincidence if you like. Tom Sykes called it a shop window. You can decide which one rings truer, but how convenient that the outfit got its own preview either way. The business has had a turbulent stretch, it should be said. The Spotify deal long gone, the Netflix arrangement reshaped and scaled back, the lifestyle line still searching for solid ground. None of that proves a motive, and the critics themselves know it. But it is the backdrop against which they now read every family post, and it is precisely why a birthday photo no longer lands as just a birthday photo.
The Sussex public relations machine, which is utterly ruthless and which never sleeps, has angrily responded to these claims of hypocrisy in a truly outrageous and uncontrolled outburst. These guys have lost the plot. The Sussex PR people, led by Harry and Meghan, are losing their minds.
Fascinating thing about all of this is that actually maybe deep down Meghan realizes people don't care about her anymore. They don't engage with her anymore. The thing they do care about is her daughter.
When a brand runs on closeness and access, the family becomes the product, whether anyone says it out loud or not. And then there is the contrast that nobody in Montecito can control. On that very same Thursday, as those birthday photos went up, Catherine, Princess of Wales, spent her day at a cancer centre in Manchester. She stood beside a 30-year-old patient finishing chemotherapy and watched her ring the bell, marking the end of treatment. She spoke quietly about how hard the whole thing is, not just for the patient, but for the family forced to watch from the sidelines. No caption strategy, nothing teased the night before, no press release. Just one woman spending a stranger's hardest day beside them, in person, away from her own phone, while another turned a family milestone into a carefully timed post for 5 million followers, with a spokesperson already on record before the picture even dropped. The people who follow this story notice that difference. They always do, and the contrast did not go unnoticed by the press either. Two royal women, same Thursday, completely different choices about what that day was going to be about, and only one of them needed a statement to explain herself afterward. Now, there is a real argument on the other side, and her supporters make it with genuine force, so let us put it at its absolute strongest before pulling it apart. A single, controlled, once-a-year photograph, they say, is not the same creature as the relentless round-the-clock feed she warned about in Geneva.
It's very obvious that Meghan prefers Lily. She 100%, Lily is the golden child. We can see this even in her birthday pictures. Lily gets professional pictures posted. What does Archie get? A really far behind shot of him and Lily somewhere on a beach, and then Harry holding him as a baby. Like, she treats the children completely differently on social media, and that's just impossible to ignore. And the reason I talk about that is because I talk about things in relations to how the parents parent the kids. And Meghan Markle is putting this at the forefront. Like, Lily got to go to Disneyland last year for her birthday. Archie didn't get the trip, she did. And Meghan just is completely and utterly willing to gaslight the public, because the reality is she wants her kids as content, especially Lily. She's perfectly fine using them as content, and kids can't consent to being content.
One curated birthday picture is a world away from a child handed a device and left alone with an algorithm for hours on end. The comparison, her defenders insist, is not even close. A parent marking a milestone is not the same as a corporation designing a product to trap a child's brain in a loop. By that reading, she is not contradicting herself at all. She is drawing the exact line she described in Switzerland, sharing the moment while guarding the identity, controlled, intentional, protective. And her defenders never let you forget the deeper point. This is a man in Harry who watched firsthand what relentless media attention did to his own mother. A man who has spent years arguing, publicly and legally, that his family's safety was compromised by an industry that treated them as product. For that couple, a turned-away photograph is not a loophole. It is a boundary, a deliberate, considered act of protection built on painful personal experience. Even one of the child welfare experts who spoke to Newsweek conceded that precise point: a face kept back genuinely is safer than a face fully on show.
That's what Meghan is doing. She's not fooling anybody. Meghan is a hypocrite in the biggest sense of the word, because these children have moments where they look completely different in their sizes and the color of their hair. I think what Meghan is doing is trying to control a narrative, but failing miserably at it. We have caught on to her. We figured her out. And the biggest part of all of this, I believe, is going to be when these children do grow up and they get bigger, they're going to see the manipulation that their mother is doing. They're going to call their mother out later in life, because Meghan is trying to use her children in a way that is not honest. She is trying to represent something that is clearly being manipulated.
The research supports it. The instinct behind it is understandable. The love driving it is real. It is a decent argument. It deserves to be heard, and then it deserves to be answered, because it is simply not a complete one. The Geneva speech was never only about screen time, minutes, or daily usage limits. It was not a lecture about parental controls or app restrictions. It was about something far broader and far more uncomfortable. It was about exposure itself. About the mechanics of how children get quietly converted into content, how their images circulate, how algorithms amplify, how a single photograph posted to a large platform does not stay still. It travels, it gets screenshotted, it gets reposted, it gets discussed, dissected, and indexed. And it does all of that whether the face is visible or not, because the child's existence, their age, their location, their family, their milestone, all of that is still in the frame, even when the features are not. A controlled photograph posted to 5 million followers on the very platform she stood at a podium and condemned.
Where do we start, Brittany?
I don't know, Dan. The optics on this are just horrifically awful on every single level. Meghan Markle just doesn't seem to understand that. If she's going to stand on this issue of internet safety, the first and foremost place that you must see this is on Meghan Markle's own Instagram page, which she refuses to do. She's trying to monetize everything, and it's impossible not to believe that Meghan Markle knows that posting her children generally gives her a bit more engagement. And so she does post her kids to get that additional engagement, to get that additional talking in the internet, in the ecosphere about her. So she is completely and utterly exploiting her children, who cannot consent, by the way, to the online machine. And particularly, she cannot also not be aware. So she is fully aware of how people discuss and talk about her children.
Just 18 days after she condemned it, is still exposure. Tidier exposure. Better lit exposure. Exposure with a white heart caption and comments switched off so nobody can push back underneath. But exposure all the same. The defenders have the better intentions. The critics have the calendar and the screenshots. There is also the question of what this post actually did in practice. The moment it went up, every major outlet ran it. People magazine, the Daily Mail, Newsweek, the New Zealand Herald, dozens of others. The image, however carefully framed, was now on the front pages of websites visited by tens of millions of people daily. The algorithm she warned about in Geneva did not pause out of respect for the caption. It picked the image up, pushed it into feeds, and served it to strangers across every time zone. That is not a criticism of her as a mother. That is simply a description of how the platform works, the same platform she used to deliver the image.
Seriously, these two are living in a parallel universe, a universe of delusion. And this is again another example of Meghan trying to cosplay Diana, very obviously. But she's done nothing for our health. Actually, she's probably been very bad for our mental health around the world, if we're honest, because she just annoys us all so much.
I think that the hypocrisy around the exploitation of the children for commercial purposes, whilst seeking to present yourself as the figurehead of a campaign that says that children are being exploited by social media, is very obvious, right? It's just very obvious.
The same mechanics she described in her speech as dangerous. You cannot post to the machine and then complain about what the machine does with it. So here is where this whole story actually lands, and it is worth taking the time to lay it out clearly. because the noise around it has been loud enough to obscure the real shape of the thing. 18 days after standing before the World Health Organization and warning the planet that children are being quietly consumed by the platforms we have built, Meghan posted what half the national press called the clearest birthday photograph of her daughter she has ever released. She did not take the criticism quietly. She did not step back and let the conversation run its course. Her camp went to Newsweek the day before the image even dropped and put a defense on the record, a defense that argued with complete confidence that the photograph and the Geneva sermon were not in conflict, that they were, in fact, the same act, two expressions of the same protective instinct, just wearing different clothes. A royal commentator who attended the Geneva speech in person called it staggeringly tone-deaf. A brand expert called it hypocritical. A broadsheet columnist at a national newspaper used the very same day to publish a piece making the same charge in print. 3 separate voices.
You saw American media pandering and catering to these two individuals that were trying to produce content in Hollywood for Netflix. So there was an option that you might get Harry and Meghan on a red carpet, or they might do a junket to promote one of their Netflix series. So there was absolutely entertainment media that was pandering to them in the hopes of access to them.
3 separate platforms. One shared conclusion. And the camp's response to all 3 was to hold the line completely, not flinching, not adjusting, not acknowledging that a single reasonable person might read the sequence differently. That confidence is worth sitting with for a moment, because it is either the mark of someone who has thought this through more carefully than the critics have, or the mark of someone who has decided that the optics do not matter, because the audience willing to accept the explanation is large enough to make the uncomfortable audience irrelevant. 5 million followers is a very comfortable cushion to rest an argument on. Then there is the pattern that sits underneath this single post and gives it its full weight. This was not an isolated moment. The privacy line has been a fixture of the Sussex public story for years, invoked consistently, described in interviews, embedded in legal arguments, repeated in statements, and yet the visible record of how strictly it has been kept tells a different story. Not dramatically different.
Oh, keep going. I'm welling up. That was, what a wonderful moment.
Yeah, it was. And, I think having someone like Catherine to bring the attention and to have people celebrate for her, I think really makes it a special moment. They are connecting with the people, not connecting to sell anything, not connecting to, help their brand, but to really bring honest eyes and attention to the great work of many people. And this is what they will do. Because they're not with the drama. They're not trying to pay their rent. They're not trying to up someone or to get over on someone. They're genuine. They are doing great things, and it can't be interrupted by just silly ghetto nonsense by Meghan, okay, and Harry. I love this. This is beautiful.
Subtly different. The kind of different that only becomes obvious when you line the posts up in sequence and notice that the standard described in the statements and the standard visible in the actual images have been moving in opposite directions, slowly, incrementally, but consistently and always toward more, not less. Nobody forced that direction. The platform is hers. The posting schedule is hers. The framing of every image is a choice made by the people holding the phone, and the people holding the phone keep choosing to share a little more each time. That is not a press intrusion story. That is an editorial decision made deliberately by the very people who built their public identity on the argument that privacy is non-negotiable. And then there is Catherine. It would be too easy to turn this into a simple comparison, and that is not what this is. Catherine is not a perfect figure. She has navigated her own controversies, made her own missteps, and faced her own waves of criticism. She is not being held up here as a standard that everyone else must measure themselves against.
We should acknowledge that they refused the initial title for Archie, and that they said that their children weren't going to have titles. And then Meghan went on Oprah Winfrey and said that they were refused titles actually by the royal family due to racism, which was not true at all. They inevitably inherited those prince and princess titles once King Charles came to the throne. Once those started to funnel out and we started to hear the stories about Meghan being a bully and a nasty person, I think someone within her team said, we need to up the the family content. We need to soften Meghan's image. Yes, she is using these children for commercial reasons. At one point on her Shop My page, she was selling some of their clothing, but ultimately I think it's about softening her image and trying to distract from the bully allegations and the negative reputation that she has cultivated over the last 6 years.
But the coincidence of that particular Thursday is too precise to simply walk past without noting what it revealed. While the birthday photographs were moving through the algorithm, Catherine was in Manchester, standing in a cancer centre beside a 30-year-old woman finishing chemotherapy, watching her ring the bell, listening, speaking quietly about what it costs not just the patient, but the people standing beside them through the whole of it. No pre-brief statement, no teaser post the night before, no carefully worded caption, no comments switched off to manage the response. Just a woman in a room where the stakes were real, doing something that had nothing to do with her own image and everything to do with someone else's hardest moment. She did not get called out that day. That is not nothing. The contrast does not prove anything about motive, but it does illuminate something about instinct, about what a person reaches for when a milestone or a moment arrives. One woman reached for her phone and her spokesperson. The other reached for a stranger's hand. Both are royal women operating under enormous public pressure, and they made completely different choices about what Thursday was going to mean. Her supporters will say that is unfair, that Catherine has different resources, different structures, different obligations. And that is true. But the Geneva speech was not a speech about resources or structures. It was a speech about choices specifically. The choice to protect children from the attention economy rather than feed them into it. And choices, by definition, are something you make yourself. Here is the simplest version of the whole story, stripped of the spokesperson language and the royal commentary and the competing newspaper descriptions of one photograph.
Love that William has a really hard line with Harry, because that's exactly what Harry needs. He needs to really feel how he has fallen far from the family, and he will never have these opportunities to grow his relationship now with his brother as long as he is with Meghan. I think if Harry were to step aside from Meghan, I think that's the only way Harry would be able to have an in with his brother. But I think because Meghan is still there by Harry's side, William is not going to allow any communication because Meghan brings drama. She's low class. She is someone that wants to create drama. She's done it with Catherine, and William just doesn't have time for it. And I'm glad he is doing that. Harry needs to suffer really low lows to understand what he has done will never be forgiven as long as he is still with Meghan.
A woman flew to Switzerland. She stood before some of the most powerful health officials on the planet. She looked into the cameras and she said, clearly and on record, that children are being turned into content by systems designed to feed on their attention and that this has to stop. She was right. The cause is genuine. The danger is real. The research backs her up. And then she flew home to California, and 18 days later, she put her 5-year-old daughter into the machine she had just described as dangerous, wrapped the image in a loving caption, switched off the comments so nobody could say anything about it underneath, and let the algorithm do exactly what she said the algorithm does. No apology followed, no acknowledgement that the timing was uncomfortable, no concession that a reasonable person might look at the sequence and feel the contradiction. Just a statement, drafted in advance, insisting that the two things were not in conflict, that the post and the speech were, somehow, both the same act of love and protection. You are allowed to find that hard to swallow. Most of the people who sat through both moments did. They watched the speech. They read the caption. They held the two things in their heads at the same time, which is exactly what she is betting they will not do, and they have not stopped talking about it since. Honestly, you could not write it. So here is the question this whole story leaves you with, and it is the one worth dropping into the comments below. Do you read the birthday post the way her spokesperson wants you to read it, as a mother drawing a careful line, protecting her child, living the values she described in Geneva? Or do you read it the way the critics do, as an 8-day contradiction sitting in plain sight, dressed up in a white heart and a loving caption, betting on the audience's short memory? There is no neutral answer. The calendar will not let there be one. Drop your verdict below. Every single comment gets read, and this particular conversation has been sharper than most. If this one made you think, hit the like button. It genuinely makes a difference in getting these stories to the people who care about them. Subscribe while you are here, because the next video is already written, and it is a big one. There is a book dropping this month that the Montecito camp has been very quietly dreading, and the new edition contains fresh pages they will absolutely not enjoy reading. That video drops in a few days. You will want to be here when it does.